the BBC content to have caused him financial and reputational harm. The BBC, like every organisation in the media, is protected by the First Amendment of the US Constitution, and it is notoriously difficult to prove malicious intent when you're dealing with a public figure. So the short answer is we don't yet know if he is going to continue to seek compensation from the BBC or if apology will indeed be enough.
We shall see as that deadline passes tomorrow. David, for the moment, thank you. The most chilling cases of child abuse echo down the years. Victoria Colombier, Baby P, and this decade, Sara Sharif. Each time, politicians and campaigners say never again. But a damning report into the death of Sara, who was murdered by her father and stepmother in 2023, has revealed multiple failings of safeguarding. A particular aspect in her case was her withdrawal from school, the report saying her killers used home education to keep Sara hidden from view. As our correspondent Rachel Venables reports, the conclusion is clear. Sara Sharif should never have been left in the care of her killers.
Take a deep breath and tell me what's happened.
I cannot. I physically punished my daughter and she died.
Your daughter has died?
I killed my daughter.
How have you killed your daughter?
I beat her up. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I beat her up too much.
That was the 999 call Irfan Sharif made after murdering his daughter and fleeing to Pakistan. A caring, confident little girl who'd loved singing and dancing. The abuse Sara Sharif suffered at home was later described in court as torture. But social services had been involved in her case since her birth, so why wasn't more done to protect her? A new independent safeguarding report has called Sara's father and stepmother a lethal combination who should never have been trusted with her care. Yet it's clear throughout her short life there were warnings that she was at risk at home. This report says the system failed to keep Sara safe. Amongst the key points and findings were the fact the authorities knew Irfan was a serial perpetrator of domestic abuse, but that information was overlooked, not acted on, and underestimated by almost all professionals. When the school told social services months before her death about bruising on Sara's face, safeguarding processes weren't followed. Sara was then taken out of school, but the report found her father and stepmother had used home education to keep Sara hidden from view.
The report's very clear that the people that are responsible for the trauma that Sara suffered and ultimately her murder are in prison where they should be. The report's also clear that there were actions that could and should have been taken by this organisation, and they weren't, and for that I profoundly apologise.
While in a statement, Surrey's Safeguarding Children Partnership said all agencies represented by the partnership take the findings of this report extremely seriously and will work urgently together to agree a joint action plan that puts in place the local learnings from the review. Throughout her short life, the authorities clearly missed multiple opportunities to share information, join the dots and ultimately protect Sara from abuse.
I think there was a lack of professional curiosity. I think there were failings right the way through. The home education team went to check on her at home, got the wrong address and didn't go back. And the next day she was dead. And I think there needs to be accountability. This cannot happen again.
The report contains 15 recommendations, including national calls to change the rules on homeschooling and to provide better training for safeguarding teams on domestic abuse.
We do have a system of accountability for children's social care. It's through Ofsted and Ofsted inspections. They've seen that in Surrey, the local authority where this was the case, that things have improved since Sara's death, which is really positive. But we do need to make sure we're holding the system to account so that it's got the conditions right for good decisions to be made.
It's clear now that little Sara was badly failed, not just by her family, but by the state, the very institutions whose job it is to protect vulnerable children like her. Rachel Venables, Sky News in Surrey.
He is the most powerful person in the country that most of us wouldn't recognise if he walked past us on the street. And tonight, Sky News understands that the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff won't be leaving his job. We've been told Morgan McSweeney categorically denies being behind briefings that Sir Keir Starmer would fight any attempt to remove him from office, and accusing the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, of plotting to replace him. Well, let's bring in our chief political correspondent now, John Craig, who's in Downing Street. So, John, they seem to be firmly battening down the hatches there tonight. But if it wasn't Morgan McSweeney, just who was it?
Well, Kemi Badenoch says there's a cover-up. Now, Morgan McSweeney isn't the most powerful person in the country, but he is very powerful here in Number 10. He might soon be an ex-powerful person because the knives are out for him. There is no doubt about that. It's all very well him saying it wasn't me, Gov, and I'm staying put, I'm not going anywhere. But there are plenty of Labour MPs and indeed some ministers who are really gunning for him and saying he's got to go. When the PM met Labour MPs after Prime Minister's questions, they were pretty strong in their demands for him to go. Now, he obviously is clinging on. Many people will regard it as inconceivable that no one in the Labour High Command here in Downing Street knew about this briefing, whoever did the briefing. And as for Mr McSweeney's future, well, there is a history of Svengalis in Downing Street who become pantomime villains and find they're expendable. Alistair Campbell, Andy Coulson, Dominic Cummings. After the 2017 bungled election by Theresa May, the men in grey suits, the 1922 executive, went to her and said, your two chiefs of staff, Fiona Hill and Nick Timothy, have got to go if you are to stay in Number 10. And go they did. Well, that fate could happen to Mr McSweeney because, of course, we know that the Prime Minister has form for dumping people who he blames for defeats or bad crises. Now, today, however, the Prime Minister was... we had some fighting talk from the Prime Minister, or even though he did sound rather rattled and tetchy.
Any briefing against ministers is completely unacceptable. That's not a new position for me. It's a position I've adopted ever since I became Prime Minister, and I made it very, very clear to my team. I've been talking to my team today. I've been assured that no briefing against ministers was done from Number 10, but I've made it clear that I find it absolutely unacceptable. If it transpires...
You're saying it didn't come from Downing Street?
I've been assured it didn't come from Downing Street, but I'd be equally clear that whether it's this case or any other, I intend to deal with it.
If it didn't come from Downing Street, where did it come from? And will you sack the person who is responsible?
Well, I will absolutely deal with anybody responsible for briefing against ministers.
Well, I'll deal with it, says the Prime Minister. Not much sign of that happening so far. There's talk of a leak inquiry. Well, they never do any good because everybody denies it, as Mr McSweeney had. No doubt if you asked a number of MPs whose names are circulating as possible culprits, they will deny it too. So this is a very serious crisis for the Prime Minister, and no amount of tough talk will make it go away. It's not just the Tories who are on the attack. Many Labour MPs and indeed some ministers are very unhappy with the events of the past 48 hours. Mr Streeting, on the other hand, well, he has a very broad smile when he talks about this. He calls it a silly season story. He talks about juvenile briefings, but he's the big winner here, and Kemi Badenoch's come out of it quite well as well.
Yes, the whodunit continues. John, thank you very much. It isn't just the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff under pressure tonight. There are calls from opposition parties for an investigation into Sir Keir Starmer's communications chief, Tim Allen, too. The concerns are being raised after Sky News revealed the spin doctor owns a minority stake in a lobbying firm and still discusses government activity with a senior consultant at the company in a perceived conflict of interest. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, has this exclusive story.
Politics can be a force for good. We will show that. We've changed the Labour Party, returned it to service, and that is how we will govern.
A promise of change from a Prime Minister who was elected to end sleaze and govern for the country. But Sky News can reveal allegations of a serious perceived conflict of interest at the heart of Number 10. Let's lay out the story. This man is Tom Baldwin, a journalist, Starmer's biographer and a long-time friend of the Prime Minister. Here, he's speaking at an event 2 days after Labour won the election, held by the lobbying company Strand Partners. And he had just become Strand Partners' strategic advisor, someone who talks to clients about politics but does not lobby for the firm. Now, there's no suggestion that either the firm or Tom has done anything wrong. But who was sat next to him? Well, it was this man, Tim Allen, one-time spin doctor for Tony Blair, and in the last couple of years, chairman and part owner of Strand Partners. But from the start of September, he got a new role. So let's take you through how all of this fits together. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is at the centre of it all. He's close, as we said, with Tom Baldwin, who we mentioned earlier. And here's Tim Allen, now in government. He joined the Number 10 team as part of a reset in September. He's now Executive Director of Communications. Baldwin is an advisor for Strand Partners, as we say. And here he is at multiple events held by the company over the last year, including one in late September this year at Labour Party conference. The company is clear that he's not a lobbyist, and for context, as a long-time journalist, he's also a regular commentator, including on Sky News. 2 weeks ago, he discussed his thoughts on government's planned tax rises.
I've spoken to quite a few of them over the last few days, and the answer is they haven't yet decided. It's a big, big decision. There's a lot of politics in it, and it'll probably go to the wire.
Still debating between Number 10 and Number 11?
Inside Number 11, inside Number 10, elsewhere in the government.
Now back to Tim Allen. When he entered government, he stepped down as a director of Strand Partners, but he still has a 10% share in the company. Now, I want you to look at this. It's the listing on Companies House. The 100,000 that you've got here, well, that equates to 10% of the company. Some see that as a perceived conflict of interest, particularly as we understand that Allen has had conversations about politics with Baldwin, a man who is paid by the company Tim Allen has a share in. Labour says Allen speaks to Baldwin because he's a journalist. The issue of a perceived conflict of interest is really important because advisers must follow the Cabinet Office Code of Conduct, which says that they must ensure that no conflict arises, could reasonably be perceived to arise between their official duties and their private interests, financial or otherwise. Labour, on behalf of Tim Allen, said the allegation that Tim Allen has done anything to benefit Strand whilst in Number 10 is categorically false. Any interactions with him are in his capacity as a journalist. Strand Partners said Tom Baldwin does not engage in government relations for Strand, and this is not part of his terms of engagement with us. Tim Allen receives no financial benefit from Strand and is not involved in our operations. Opposition parties have jumped on the story, with the Liberal Democrats and the Tories writing to the government calling for an investigation.
I think this is yet another example of the hypocrisy. Labour said that they were going to hold themselves to the highest standards of integrity. They've made a big song and dance about clamping down on lobbying.
Keir Starmer is clearly quite close to Tom Baldwin. Do you think that there should be any safeguards in that relationship, given that Tom Baldwin works for a lobbying company?
Well, when I was in government, if you had people from lobbying firms speaking to ministers, you always had a civil servant in the room who was taking notes. So let's see the records of the conversations that Tom Baldwin has had with the Prime Minister. What have they been talking about?
Demands for answers from across the political spectrum. What do you make of what's happened?
I think it's extraordinary that someone still has shares who's at the heart of Downing Street. I think there's lots of questions still to be asked.
The situation cannot last, say some Labour MPs.
Because it kind of feels like it could be a conflict of interest. So, but I'm not fully up to date with the story. So, you know, probably need to give up his shares or his job.
The man in the background tasked with fixing Keir Starmer's image, now facing questions of his own.
Police and crime commissioners in England and Wales are to be scrapped. Their jobs will be done by mayors and council leaders, a move the government says will save £100 million. It says they do little to improve confidence in policing, with 2 in 5 people unaware they even exist. Sky News has been given rare access inside a specialist unit tasked with cracking down on the people smuggling trade as migrants use routes from Libya to try and reach Europe. The team works through the night to prevent people making the perilous journey across the Mediterranean. as part of ongoing battles against the smugglers who are accused of abusing and raping some of those desperate for a new life abroad. Eastern Libya is controlled by a powerful leader and a militia keen to show it's clamping down on smugglers and their cargo. In return, they seek European funding and recognition. Sky's special correspondent Alex Crawford and her team travelled to a detention centre in Benghazi where hundreds of migrants are being held. A warning that her report contains stories of sexual assault and abuse, which you may find distressing.
We've seen inside East Libya's detention centres, which are generally off limits. They're packed with those caught being smuggled to Europe. We talked to the men accused of being people smugglers. And we're with the forces trying to break the international smuggling networks crossing the sea from North Africa. The trade in humans is one of the most lucrative ways of making money in East Libya right now.
A lot of people. A lot of people.
Amongst the shops and cafes, out of sight of our cameras, underground smuggling outfits are plotting to move the most desperate illegally across borders. The law enforcers we're with rely a lot on informants and intelligence.
They've been watching some locations which they believe to be suspicious and full of people who are going to try to cross the water, and we're going to go with them.
They go heavily armed. There's a huge amount of money at stake here and unscrupulous people. They've no idea what they're heading into. But they find some women. And round the corner in this disused building, a bigger group of frightened Sudanese. They've been abandoned by the smugglers they paid to get them on small boats across the Mediterranean. It emerges among them are young children and at least one pregnant woman. They've been here for 2 days, waiting for the smugglers to collect them after travelling for weeks out of the war zone which is their home. They tell the officers they've come to Libya to escape the fighting and were duped by smugglers who took all their money and maltreated them. It was very difficult, one woman tells us. We were very hungry and they were beating us to tell us to run more quickly. They won't give any details about the smugglers, but it's hard to imagine they got here without a Libyan connection.
A lot of tired and exhausted people there, having spent 18, 20 days on the road, now being taken off to the detention centre.
The night's work isn't over yet. The hunt goes on for the missing smugglers. The smugglers are known to lock up their human cargo and hold them captive until their families pay ransoms. They've no idea what's behind this locked door, but they're not taking any chances. Inside, they discovered 2 packed-up dinghies and motors, waiting to be used to smuggle people across the sea.
They reckon these boats, and they found 2 of them, could probably take between 60 to 100 people, and that would probably net around about 150,000 American dollars.
The whole of East Libya is effectively under the command of the military leader General Haftar and his sons. The general's picture is everywhere, and the Haftar regime is accused by human rights groups of being involved in smuggling, corruption and torture. It's rare to get access to the detention centres. This is the main one in Benghazi, housing thousands caught being smuggled. We have a large escort of guards, but the East Libyan authorities are on a mission to show us how Europe needs to work with them. Up until now, officially, European funds have been directed to the rival and separate UN-recognised government in the West.
You see all around there's lots of building work being done because they're renovating this place, they're expanding it. This is a problem that they clearly see they have to make way for, prepare for, because it's not going away anytime soon.
The detainees spend most of their time locked up. Our visit is an exception. They tell us about a lack of food and little to drink. And amongst the women, there are multiple children and babies. Many have harrowing tales of their journey this far. My daughter was raped, she tells us. We just want to be free. A number of these young women who are from Somalia say they've been abused by the smugglers and tell of relatives who've died on the way. With the guards listening, it's difficult to know how comfortable they feel telling us about conditions here. Sandra seeks us out to specifically tell us she's been raped, and so have many others.
I'm checking even for pregnant, I'm not pregnant, but for HIV, still not answered. They're waiting, because they're scared too much. It's not good in here. They want to go, but it's not good. Everything is not good. It's not good. Every girl is they have to, every boys, they do something like sex or something, but they don't tell us.
I'm sorry, they're making me leave. It's okay.
We're told we need to move on at this point. In the men's centre, some Nigerians say they've been held here for months. Francis says for nearly a year, and they're desperate to leave.
To be frank, nobody would like to stay in Libya because of their problems. Maybe they hate blacks or maybe they hate us, but some of us, my own intention too is to also work and get money. I have my original passport from here to travel.
To where? To where?
To Turkey, to any Europe country.
What about safety in these centres? Do you feel safe?
Not safe. As you can see, when we are here, no more going outside. We are living here.
Others are brought before us, accused of being people smugglers, charges they deny.
When they arrest us, later they took us to court, they say we are selling and buying.
Selling and buying what?
Women.
Women?
They insist they've been set up.
We need your help.
But there is no access to lawyers or even relatives here.
We need your help. We need freedom. Freedom. We need freedom.
The East Libyan authorities are definitely trying to show us how much they're doing to stop people smuggling. And their sea operations are night and day when we're with them.
Looks like there's a lot of refugees on board. Quite a lot of them. You can see them all sitting there. And looks like, according to their information, they've spent at least a couple of days at sea already. This latest group pulled from a small dinghy are from Bangladesh, again with ambitions of a future in Europe.
People want to go to Italy because we want to live. We want to live. We have a life. We want to save life. Better life. We are not safe in Libya. We are not safe in Libya. No food, no water, nothing. We want to go to Italy. Please save us. Please save us.
Our unusual access to East Libya has been all about demonstrating that this illegal migration is Europe's challenge, not the Libyans. We're repeatedly told that the Army General in charge and his authorities here in the East want European funds and European recognition for their efforts. There's a big display in front of our cameras showing the officers returning personal belongings before those detained are deported. And there are lingering question marks over what it would mean for Europe if these operations were to suddenly stop. Alex Crawford, Sky News in East Libya.
Now to sport, and England maintained their perfect record in the World Cup qualifiers after a 2-0 win tonight over Serbia at Wembley. Arsenal winger Bukayo Saka scored the first, volleying in a deflected shot into the corner of the goal, which took England into the break, a goal up. They had to wait until the 90th minute for their second, scored by Arsenal midfielder Eberechi Eze. It's 7 wins out of 7 in the qualifiers, with England having already safely booked their place in next year's finals. Now, we already knew that Elon Musk could do it, and now his rival in the world's richest stakes, Jeff Bezos, has joined the Space Launch Club.
Liftoff detected. Space motion.
The Amazon founder's Blue Origin company launched its new Glenn rocket, carrying 2 NASA space probes to Mars. They'll circle the red planet for several months, studying its atmosphere and weather conditions.
Standing by for touchdown.
Minutes after takeoff, the rocket and its main fuel tank separated. The reusable booster returned to Earth and landed successfully aboard a platform in the Atlantic Ocean. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by political commentator Tim Montgomery and the former head of news at Channel 4, Dorothy Byrne. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of The Guardian, about our top story here on Sky News. Its headline, BBC apologises to Trump over Panorama, but rejects $1 billion claim. We'll be right back with that story and others. Do stay with us if you can.